welcome to John Boy's Radio and Electronics Workbench. I was asked to give an overview on the B&K Precision CV Service Master. It's the center piece of test equipment on my bench, and I'm going to show you both pieces of equipment. There consists of two. There's a signal generator, and then there's the service master that sits below it, and they are interconnected, and I'll show you how all that works. First, we'll start with the signal generator. All right, this is the B&K 2040 CB signal generator. Its primary function is to deliver citizen band signal to the radio for receive purposes. We'll just start out with the easy stuff. It's a little bit technical, but not too much. So right here, get me a pointer. There we go. How about this guy? This is a good guy here. You see my pointer here? Okay, the pointer. This guy right here is the RF out. So this is the output of the signal generator. Above that is this is an attenuator. Okay, with this I can adjust the output of the signal generator. It's capable of doing 100,000 microvolts and down to 1 microvolt. I usually let it sit at 100 microvolts minus 70 dB, which is where we calibrate S9, and that reads out here directly on the meter and is adjusted here on the output. I usually leave it around 0 dBm for the most part. And then also, if you pull on this, it goes click and it outputs a noise. It outputs noise that would be similar to the noise that an alternator or a ignition system would put out. So it simulates ignition system noise so that you can do the noise blanker function in some of the radios that require it. So the next thing we're going to look at is this guy right here. This is the channel selector. That's pretty self-explanatory. It goes from 40 channels to channel 1. I usually do most of my stuff on channel 19. It also reads out the frequency here. And that's kind of the that part of this. That's that part of it. So we keep moving left here. You can see we have modulation amplitude and we have the modulation meter. So this switch here controls which the meter function is. So in modulation meter, put it in modulation, it shows you the modulation on the top graticule here from 0 to 100, the percentage of modulation that's coming out and modulating the RF carrier. Okay, this switch here allows you to adjust what frequency is coming out and modulating. So it's got 3 of them that are internal to the unit. It also has an external. It has an external function. I get too much glare there. There we go. It has an external function, EXT, which means that you can input. It's got external modulation input. Probably can't see it because the thingy's there, and then it's glaring all over the place again. Let's try that. Okay, external modulation input right here. So you can plug into this with banana jacks and drive it with any audio oscillator, so you can put in any frequency you want and do a sweep if you want. So that's how that works. It also has a CW function, which means there's no modulation going on. It's just completely signal generator. I use this when we go to the delta range. So the delta frequency is when you take this frequency and make the meter function go over to the delta frequency. You have a switch here, a potentiometer here that adjusts the delta frequency of the signal generator. I use this for sideband. So if you look at the meter, you can see when I'm turning this, it goes all the way up to full scale and all the way down. So what it's doing is it's changing the delta frequency of this by up to 5 kilohertz each way. So this would be forward 5 kilohertz, back down to null, and then back up to 5 kilohertz on the other sideband. So that's what that is for. That's what I use it for, doing sideband. And it also has a function to where if you push this button in, it goes to center frequency and locks. And it has no function. I usually just leave it out and leave it. It also shows you what's going on, which sideband you are. So if this one's lit, you're on the upper side, and if this one lit, you're on the lower side. So that's kind of how that all works. It's a fairly simple unit. Just about anybody can use it, and that is the signal side of the signal generator. Now I'll proceed to show you the other part, the interconnected part on the other side of this great piece of test equipment, these great series of test equipment they made back in the late 70s. A lot of people have them. This part is the CB Service Master, the 1040 CB Service Master Precision. This is the dummy load and audio section of the unit. So I'm going to start with the front panel here. See if I can tilt this up so you can see it. Basically, you have this connector here, which is where you connect your radio, right here. This goes to the transceiver or your CB radio. It's one connection, that's all you need. You also have here, you have an external jack. So if you want to connect an external dummy load, you can. This is your audio output. So if you want to look at the audio output coming from what's going in here, this is your receiver audio. So you plug this into your the external speaker jack on the radio. This plugs in here. Okay? And this, you can look at that, cycles it back through and looks at it, so you can look at it on a scope if you want to, or in that respect, you can look at the audio coming out of the radio. You can look at it on a scope. That's kind of what that's there for. So that is the front panel. Hope that's this is not too glary. I know I got a lot of glare here. It's going to be hard to see some of this stuff. My lights up top are pretty glary. But we'll start over here on this side. Basically, you have this switch here determines what this reads out in watts. This is a 100-watt CB Service Master. It's not designed to really read over 100 watts, so you don't want to keep it down. There's only enough dummy load in here for about 100 watts. If you go over that, you risk smoking the resistors that are in there. There's a bunch of 100 ohms. I think they used a bunch of 100 ohm resistors in parallel to achieve the dummy load. So try to move this a little bit at a time so you can see different stuff. So this is the average and peak. So this tells you average reading meter. So when you read average, the swing will be average. So when you whistle or put modulation into the microphone while it's hooked up, it will read power and swing on an average. If you put it in peak, it'll read the peak envelope power when you modulate to 100%. That's what I use to set modulation, and I can see the watt meter and the scope at the same time. So next thing is this little transmitter function here. This is so you can do the SWR. I rarely use this, but you can check SWR of an antenna from this jack. So you can actually hook an antenna to this jack and then do SWR of an antenna through this. I never use that. I got other things that do that much better. I usually just leave it in forward and use it there. Then you have the range switch, which is typical on most power meters. It reads 10 watts, 10 watts full scale, 10 watts full scale, 50 watts full scale, and 100 watts full scale, which would be the 10 scale again. It also has the SWR here at the bottom, so you can check SWR. That's the signal, that's the transmitter side of the section. In the center you have, obviously, you have your power. You have your, this here controls what comes out of the speaker. So if you got it in receive audio, it outputs the output of the receiver, whatever you have it set for modulation, it will output it on this speaker. You can hear that. And then when you go to 1000 hertz, that allows me to modulate a microphone. I can take a microphone and put it over the speaker here and modulate it so that I can, without having to whistle all the time with my big fat puckery mouth, it does that. And it has basically 1000 cycle, or it has two-tone. Two-tone is used for sideband, to set ALC on sideband. That's what the two-tone is for, and you can adjust the level accordingly. Okay. Furthermore, on the other side of this unit, we have this meter function here, receive audio output. So there's a lot of functions here that I don't use. It actually has a function that you can do distortion, and I've never used that. I'd have to get in the manual to use it. I usually just use it here on 1/10 of a volt, or 1/10 of a watt, and 10 watts. I usually set it to 1, and then I set it to whatever the speaker is. This goes to 8 ohms, 4 ohms, and 16 ohms. This is so you can calibrate how much power is coming out of your, you can actually look at that as a measurement, how much power in audio is coming out of the external speaker jack of your radio. So you can see how much power it has. It's there as a kind of an afterthought. I never really use that. We just want it to have not much distortion. And there's also a way to adjust through these settings here. Distortion, null. This is something you'd have to go to the manual for. I have never used it. I never use that function on this particular unit. So everybody's asking me, how does this all interconnect? Well, basically, if I can get this out of here so I can show you. I'm going to take off the front of this stuff so I can see what's going on here. Okay, let's look back here. Get up here where you can see the back of it. This is going to be upside down. Let's see if I can rotate it so you can see it better. So it's not very much here. So basically on the back of this unit is the interconnect. So you can see the serial number. You also have this place here where you can actually run this unit on 12 volts if you want. Now the RF generator jack, it comes from the signal generator, and then there's two other jacks here that you can see. One comes from your frequency counter and one goes to the oscilloscope. One to the counter, one to the scope. They're all connected simultaneously so that you can get the readings in that respect. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a very easy, simple unit to use. And as far as demonstrating it, I suppose I could hook a radio up and demonstrate it real quick. What did I disconnect here? That's there and that's there. Okay. So all I can do is give you a short shot of this thing in action. Basically, I have a radio set up over here. the CB Service Master puts out a signal. I've got it set at S9 right now, so the meter reads S9. That goes into the transceiver, goes in and out from here, one connection. Now when I key the mic, you see the comes up to 4 watts. Audio, and it swings. If I turn on the tone, I put this over the mic over there, and it swings up to wherever it swings. So right now I'm getting about 14 watts of swing out of this. If you go to average, it only shows you the average. I leave it in peak most of the time. And that's kind of how that works. So now if I hook the this jack here, which is the receiver audio, and I hook it into the external speaker jack like that. Now the audio goes straight into here and into this meter circuit, where I can adjust the level and read it out directly. So that's what I'm doing when I'm doing the peaking. I put it in here, and then I set this for about full scale on the volume, turn this way down here, way down there to about a microvolt, and that's and then you peak the cans with that going on. Okay, that's how that works. Back up to S9, and then of course when you key the microphone, it disconnects. There's a relay in here that disconnects it and reads the power out, so you don't have to disconnect and reconnect. It doesn't feedback signal into the signal generator. It's got a relay. It controls itself, and that's pretty much what I use it for. And it's the center of the repair stuff. So I'm sorry I don't get to show you every time I do a radio these meters, because it's tucked under there, and I can't get a camera under there to show you the meters while I'm doing it. But this is what I'm seeing when I'm doing radios. Okay, there you have it. That's my overview on the CB Service Master. You probably saw it all in my introduction video, but this is a little bit more in depth. I hope that helps people who want to know how that all works and how it fits together. It's a very nice system. They've been out a long time. You can still find them on eBay. They're quite expensive. I think they want close to $400 for the signal generator and close to $300 for the Service Master. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. God bless you and your family. And we'll see you on the next one. And please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Bye-bye now.